Well, it is now 14 minutes after 7 and it's time for the State of the Nation. As you can see, our guests are already in studio and on set. And what we do on State of the Nation is we put our pulse on what is happening in the nation, and I'll be introducing them shortly as we get into the State of the Nation. As usual, you're welcome to participate in this part of the show. We'll be opening up the phone lines. We'll also open up the social media that you're able to access, and do let us know what your thoughts are as we continue with the debate. We'll give you an opportunity to engage with them as we continue with the show. So, State of the Nation starting up in just a bit. Now, IEBC had, by close of business yesterday, received over 40 written submissions on the presidential ballot papers, sourcing the public to participate in the window ends today. On Monday, the electoral body met with the presidential candidates over the stalemate, but the meeting ended up without a consensus. It is 25 days to the general election, and Jubilee says it shall not engage IEBC or other stakeholders further on the ballot paper round. An appeal filed by IEBC will be heard tomorrow by the 5-judge bench, and the ruling made later. So in the middle of all this, what the options do we have with IEBC to end the stalemate? On State of the Nation today, I'm joined by presidential candidate Michael Wainaina, nominated Member of Parliament Isaac Mwaura, Third Way Alliance Party Deputy Chair Eugene Adabwa, and NASA Secretariat spokesperson Onyango Olo. Welcome, gentlemen, and good to have you this morning. I'll start with you, Honorable Isaac Mwaura. Jubilee has come out to say that they're not going to have any more conversation. Is that really taking us in the right direction?
Yes, of course, because to be very honest, this whole issue of the tender of the ballots is an internal job. You don't go dictating who you should buy certain products from in a given public entity or even private company. You allow the due process of procurement to take place. And so therefore, the aspersions that are being cast around the integrity of the presidential ballot, Jubilee does not and will not want to be seen to be influencing, because the elections are not won, Mike, on whether you are having ballot papers. At least these are not party primaries where you give people photocopies or ballot papers to staff them so they can declare themselves winners. And so any person who is pursuing that line of thought, that the only way we can sit down to discuss is who is going to get which tender to print how the number of ballots, so as, for example, as if you are going to get extra ballots to staff, I think it's neither here nor there.
Mwaura, some might view that as arrogance from Jubilee's part, because right now we're at a point in time where these negotiations are to find a consensus.
I think, Mike, the word arrogance should be expunged from this discussion, because there is no form of arrogance when you exclude yourself from a process that you don't think is going to yield any results, because there is no negotiation. Are you going to negotiate on which company to do the job? Are you going to negotiate on the specifications of those are internal matters? To be very honest, we are becoming superfluous as a nation. I mean, we are over legislating, we are over indulging in court processes just to prove political points. I mean, of course, you would say there is a level of mistrust, but honestly, we must allow IEBC to do its job. And we must always remember, ab initio, that all these issues that we are finding ourselves into are because the timelines have been blurred, they have been changed because of the clamor to remove the earlier commission of the IEBC. That's why we are finding ourselves in this crisis. And who generated this crisis? Obviously, we know who did so. So, if you birth the process, go ahead and conclude it.
When you say we know who created this crisis, who are you referring to?
Of course, it's the opposition. They are the ones who went to the streets to demand that IEBC should be removed. Now, they are the same ones who are questioning at every instance over 36 court cases. And then you want to ask me around that whether these people are willing to go for elections? The answer is obviously no. Actions speak louder than words. And people will deny here, but the truth of the matter is we cannot be going to court to discuss who is going to buy this cup of tea, this cup, as if they are going to lose the quality of tea that is going to get inside there.
All right. Onyangolo, your comments are given, especially now there's an accusation that it's the opposition that basically is pushing for this.
I think my brother Mwaura seems to truly embrace and represent the spirit of Jubilee the disdain and contempt with which they hold our institutions. You can see the way he speaks about that judgment as if it was written in someone's kitchen and handed it over to us. The judiciary is an integral component of our institution, founded and established under our constitution given to ourselves, which we gave to ourselves in 2010. And unless you have such utter contempt of the judiciary, you cannot just dismiss a decision that comes from the judiciary with the lightness with which the Jubilee tries to dismiss the decision that an independent institution arrived at. The judiciary, as we understand it, as we know it, is an independent organ of the state. It makes its own judgment based on law and facts presented to it. Number one. Number two, when Jubilee says they are not going to participate, that this that someone intends to influence the outcome of the tender process. It is unfortunate that my brother seemed not to understand or to appreciate the difference between public participation and seeking to influence a tender. Public participation is a right ingrained in our constitution that allows the citizens to have an input into matters that concern them. So when the court makes a decision or a ruling that the public ought to participate in this process, one, you cannot just wake up and dismiss it. Two, you cannot say, unless you are rewriting the constitution within this talk show. The courts are perfectly entrusted with the right to protect the constitution and ensure that the laws of these lands are honored.
All right, let me come to you, Adabo. And are we trivializing this whole thing by whittling it down to just the printing of ballot papers? What's more than just the printing? I remember, I think it was Abdul Badida who was saying that, look, all we need is a picture and a name and somewhere to put a tick.
One, let me say that, again, to reaffirm that I'm happy the courts realized or really validated Third Way Alliance position in terms of public participation, and our prayers were granted. Now, where it beats all logic is that we forget to understand what public participation is. I'll ask, for instance, and I know I'll be shocking Isaac if I ask him the nitty-gritties of the tender. For instance, for what period is that tender valid? That tender is valid for 2 years. It expires in 2019. We can only review matters to do with the costings after 12 months. And remember, we are committing 2 years, and it is us Kenyans, it is our tax that is supposed to fund this. Do you want to tell me that Kenyans don't need to know all this? They don't have a place yet. You see, they're the ones paying for this. Isaac, we need to move beyond what is in the surface and dig deeper, get to understand what it's all about. Third Way Alliance has put its foot down, and we know there is that gap that needs to be addressed. Okay?
All right, Professor Michael Wainaina.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Two things. There is no obligation on anybody to participate in a public participation process. So when somebody recuses themselves from the public participation process, it is what Mheshimiwa Isaac calls superfluous. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. The people who have an obligation to offer an opportunity for people to participate according to the court ruling is IEBC. So the obligation is on IEBC to offer people an opportunity to participate. The obligation is not on any participants to participate. If Michael, you want to participate, you can. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to. That is number one. Number two, and this has been my serious concern ever since we met with the IEBC on Monday. They called the presidential candidates on Monday, and we had a meeting, the one you are referring to, and the one that you are saying that did not come up with a consensus. And I will tell you why it did not come up with a consensus. It's because the IEBC did not present to us an analysis of what their interpretation of the court ruling is to them. That is number one. They did not explain to us what the implications of the court ruling are on the electoral process, and they did not explain what measures they are taking to mitigate those implications of the ruling on the electoral process. So that what people are doing now is shooting in the dark without knowing where the IEBC stands on this issue, apart from the fact that they have appealed the ruling, and they have appealed a section of the ruling, and they have asked for interpretation. So that as far as the country is concerned, and from where I'm seated, the country is still in the dark in terms of what does the IEBC make of the ruling, what are the implications, and what are they going to do to mitigate those implications.
All right, Onyango, let me come back to you now, and we need a way forward. And we're waiting for the ruling, which will be done once IEBC goes through to the appeal court. But what's the way forward? What is NASA's stand as regards this is what would help us now move forward from where you're seated? Is it that it's given to a different firm? What exactly is NASA's stand in regards to that?
You know, NASA has always maintained that it had no direct interest in ensuring this tender goes to a specific firm. What they had insisted in from the word go, and remember the complaints did not go with this High Court case that led to the position we are in. This tender has always been plagued with one hurdle after the other of a judicial nature or of an administrative nature. NASA's position has always been that the process has to be credible, the process has to be one that is believable, one that is brings integrity into the whole system. So the NASA position, even now as we are talking, is simple. We do not care who gets this tender, but we smell a rat when our brothers the other side insist it has to be Al Ghurair. And in previous show we have been able to demonstrate to you why we had issues with Al Ghurair. We are saying, after public participation, let us move forward. The court did not insist it has to be open tender. It could go through restricted, it could go through direct tender, but let there be public participation. Let this tender go to any other institution or any other company, and let us move forward towards the elections. These issues of appeal, counter appeals are meant actually to delay the forthcoming general elections, in my view.
All right. Michael, I don't think that the position that is being presented by Onyango is very accurate. He is saying that NASA has no interest on who prints.
Finally prints.
I have been in these meetings, and the position of NASA has consistently been that it can be anybody else but Al Ghurair.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
So it means you have an interest in who prints, because once you start excluding and including, then it means that you have an interest,
we have an
who
interest
prints and who doesn't
who
print.
does not print.
And that's what I'm saying.
Not on who prints.
Onyango, let me finish. That is number one. Number two, the reservations that NASA had presented in court to question the tender that had been given to Al Ghurair were dismissed by the court. And the court granted the prayer that had been presented by the Third Way Alliance on public participation.
Participation.
But on the issues that Onyango Law is talking about, on the issue of bias, on the issue of collusion, on the issue of impropriety, the court did not find any case for those issues. And therefore, whatever issues that NASA would continue to have on the contract are either rumors or insinuations or opinions or things that they could not prove in court. So that as we stand now, the court ruling made NASA's case weaker not stronger.
Void.
And well, void for lack of a better word. Okay, so that right now we are going back to the drawing board, not because the court found that there was bias, not because the court found that there was inappropriate collusion, but because there was no public participation. So that the position that NASA holds, that it has to be anyone but Al Ghurair, is not supported by the case and the outcome of the case that they filed.
Okay.
But the position that should pertain is that IEBC is the final arbiter, and for IEBC are going to have to pronounce themselves on this issue in relation to the court ruling, and in relation to what it is that they are going to do, given the fact that the election is a few days away.
All right, let me come to you, Eugene. And Third Way Alliance, of course, is, as you said, your prayer or what you had petitioned was granted, and this is public participation. In your view, once the public participation hurdle is jumped, are you okay with anyone printing?
And why not? Why not? For us, really, it's about, can we have a credible process? And what I would request, maybe to even get it from Isaac, I'd really want to understand what Jubilee's view is on this public participation thing. Is it something that they think is credible enough to halt the process? Because I also must acknowledge that we find ourselves in this position because of IEBC's failure to be well prepared for the process. We have pertinent questions regarding the whole process. We would like to know that the elections coming up on the 8th are tamper-proof. We want to know that we can trace, that single ballot from the point of, the seal being broken, it being casted and counted. How sure are we that we are getting ourselves into such a credible system?
Okay, and that is good.
I think let me respond to that. Number one is the issue of public participation is something you can hide under, so that then you can stop processes, you can question the impartiality of certain procedures. But by the end of the day, really, the people who are going to determine who is going to be the winner of this election are the ones who are going to cast the ballot. And I think there are questions, very legitimate questions, that I personally, leave alone even Jubilee, I would want to ask. How do you infuse public participation in direct procurement? Do you tell the public to come and comment about the company that you have directly asked to procure from? It is a very nebulous thing. And
I would like to respond to that.
Let me finish. I think I gave you a chance to speak, all of you. You must also allow me to speak. And so therefore, the IEBC has gone to the High Court, or to the Court of Appeal, to actually get further clarifications. I think I'm told that there are even some minimum standards that a certain judge had declared. So let us hear tomorrow what the five-man bench will say, because this is going to create a very serious precedent, not just to the IEBC, but also to any other procuring entity within the public space. And further to that, I think we have seen the delegitimization of public institutions primarily from our key opponents here, the ODM, because they are the ones who attack the KDF, they attack the IEBC, they attack NCIC, they attack every fathomable public institution that seems to stand on its own account, because it is supposed to be anarchist. You're supposed to set stage for chaos. And now, when the judges, who clearly they are colluding to fix who is supposed to sit on which bench, agrees with them, now they say the judiciary will be bashed. Then
Honorable Maura, when you make an accusation like that, do you have evidence?
They will respond. And then when now they also prop up institutions of their own, proteges in various institutions to come up and drum up their support about judicial independence. You see? But when the IEBC is trying to do it, it should not be independent. It's supposed to be supported by a certain political, side. So personally, what I want to say is this: the Jubilee party, because it's about the political party's competition, is only interested in a free, fair, and credible process, and is fully confident that IEBC, given its rightful mandate and space to operate will deliver such an outcome. And Jubilee will go ahead and win. But if, for example, you have already sensed defeat, and you would want to ensure that every process is hampered so that we have a caretaker government where you can come in and have Nusumukate, that Jubilee is not ready to do.
Before I come to you, Nyangolo, are you suggesting, Honorable Mwaura, that should there be anything that anybody, whether it is the opposition, whether it is independent candidates, have a problem with, they should not question it simply because we do not want to scuttle because 8th of August is only 25 days away?
The questioning is not the issue. The problem is obstructing a public institution from executing its own mandate. I don't think anybody has gone to any public space and said that the cases that the opposition has taken to court are illegal. But the frequency, 36 cases. Is that somebody ready for an election? I mean, action speaks louder than words. And for me, from where I sit and from where Jubilee sits, we can clearly see that the opposition has and is not ready to conduct its election, because even their own opinion polls are showing that Jubilee is winning. That is where the problem is.
Nyangolo, would you like to respond to Honorable
I would like to respond, Mike. It seems that Mwaura is having some difficulty understanding the concept of independence vis-a-vis compliance with the law. May I make it abundantly clear to Mwaura and our brothers and sisters who may not appreciate this, that these institutions, IEBC, the judiciary, etc., that are independent and that are meant to operate independent, being independent does not mean operating outside the law. So insofar as they are independent, it simply entails that they will execute their duty, their mandate, without interference from anybody whatsoever. But that mandate has to be executed in conformity and in compliance with the law. It is not the number of cases being brought, Honorable Mwaura. We would bring 100, so long as, even 100 and plus, so long as there is a travesty of justice, so long as someone has impugned the law. So the problem we are having here, and I want you to get it clearly, so long as IEBC does not comply with the law, there will always be someone to say,
and vexatious litigations.
There will always be someone to come and say, please toe the line. And for your information, Mr. Mwaura, you may not be in the know that there is even a provision, if you are interested, to go and have this a litigant declared vexatious litigant.
That's what I think we need
now,
to do.
you have not done that because all the cases, you will not even go through because all the claims that have been brought have been legitimate.
And you are planning to go back to court again.
Can you just allow me to talk? Okay? You have been talking about delegitimization of government, of institutions. No. It is insisting. Remember, even the 2010 constitution was brought through persistence by the opposition then, that insisted that we had to live by the rule of law. So when our institutions, which were brought in through very painstaking processes, try to operate outside the law, trying to bring them back to operate within the law does not amount to the legitimization, for your information.
All right, let me hear from you, Adabwa, in regards to the way forward. We need a way forward. We only have 25 days to go. And looking at IEBC today, even in terms of the public, they may not have a lot of confidence, and that could be a recipe for chaos. What do you see as the way forward?
Making reference to the tender document, some of these things, it's important to make reference to what we can hold on to. The document is very clear that any institution that would want to participate in this as a provider should have the capability of delivering within a minimum of 21 days. I don't know if Isaac is aware of that. So we still have 25 days, and I think that still holds. And it goes on to even talk about the shortest time possible. I think what IEBC needs to do is to basically comply. There are no two ways about it. We are talking of the
At
law
this point
here.
in time, should the public participation hurdle be jumped, are you confident that IEBC is ready and you're happy that there'll be good arbiters and fair arbiters?
Would you, Mike, as a Kenyan citizen, as a taxpayer, be comfortable with that?
I am asking you from Third Way Alliance.
It's not.
I want to know whether
It's not
Third Way
justified.
Alliance is confident. As a taxpayer, I have my opinion, but I want to know your opinion from Third Way Alliance. Should this hurdle be jumped, are we good to go as far as you're concerned?
One, it will be illegal.
What will
And
be illegal?
If you omit the public participation bit, then
I've asked if the public participation hurdle is jumped. In other words, it is
if it is resolved,
You're
of
happy.
course, yeah, I'm happy.
You're good to go.
I'm good to go.
Professor Wainaina?
You have asked a very important question, and I think it is good for us to address ourselves to the question that has the IEBC demonstrated to the Kenyan voter that they will deliver free and fair elections? Do we have confidence in the IEBC amidst the issues and the problems that the electoral process is facing right now, that we will have free and fair elections? I think the IEBC does need to address itself very specifically to this question, because if there is a perception among the people that the IEBC cannot deliver free and fair elections, then that is a recipe for chaos. I do not know that the political class can be relied upon in this process. Remember that they are actors, and even when you are listening to them talk, you can hear that you are not going to get any progressive thinking or any progressive engagement from the political class. And therefore, this country is waiting on the IEBC to give very, very definitive and decisive direction to this process, and not just give decisive direction to this process, but give such a direction that will raise the confidence of the Kenyan that they will deliver free and fair elections.
So as an independent presidential candidate, are you confident that IEBC is ready to deliver free and fair and credible elections?
I do not impugn the intentions of the IEBC. I do not know, though, that their actions and the perceptions of those actions engender confidence that they will deliver free and fair elections. I have always been of the position, Michael, that was given to us by Johan Kregler in 2008, and he warned us that you cannot have free and fair elections in an environment of ethnicity and political dishonesty. That environment, Michael, has not changed. The same players that he was referring to in 2008 are the same players that we have now. So
are you included in those players?
I wasn't a player in 2008.
Yeah.
And we are the people.
No, I'm referring to the fact that you've said it's the same players.
Yes, the same players, the NASA and,
So
the Jubilee
referring to
Brigade.
Jubilee and
Absolutely.
NASA, okay.
There are other people, and I am very encouraged, Michael, that there are other voices that are trying to bring themselves onto this stage to remind Kenyans that the world is not divided into NASA and Jubilee, and that alternatives are possible, and that if we engage honestly and if we engage with the interest of the country at heart, it is possible for us to build a different country. But that kind of narrative, Michael, will not come from the people who took us to war in 2007, 2008. Johan Kregler told us that it's not going to happen. So that for me, in terms of the political class, I think it is not going to be possible for us to have free and fair elections if we are going to listen to NASA and Jubilee. But that only makes the role of the IEBC harder, and it is their responsibility to raise their profile so that Kenyans can see a trusted, a decisive, and a reliable arbiter.
So are you suggesting that with Jubilee and NASA being what you're referring to as what we had before,
yes,
being there, then they are responsible for us not having a free and fair election?
Largely, and I will tell you why. If Jubilee and NASA were interested in free and fair elections, we should have seen that in the nominations that they conducted in April.
Okay.
You know, Michael, what you do is that if you are shouting to IEBC about free and fair elections, you should be telling us look at how we did ours, okay? This is the standard that we set. This is a threshold that we set. And IEBC, we expect you to meet this threshold. If the IEBC was to behave in any way like the NASA and Jubilee nominations, you know where this country would be.
Let me hear from you, Onyango. Do you agree that, or your comments, or rather rebuttal to Professor Michael Wainaina's allegation that basically with NASA and Jubilee as it is currently constituted, free and fair elections are a far-fetched dream?
I don't think Jubilee and NASA have got anything to do with the credibility of the elections, whether they're going to be free or fair, etc., etc. The whole reason and purpose for which we created an institution, called it and clothed it with the power to be independent, is that it becomes an umpire, was that parties to a contest are likely or are wont to score at all costs more often than not. And therefore, should such eventualities present themselves, we are going to have an independent umpire who insists that people play by the rules. And this is Independent Boundaries and Electoral Commission, that they are there to ensure that not only NASA, Jubilee, but the independents and the third force alliance, third way alliance, all have a fair ground in which to ply their trade, if any. The unfortunate thing we have had is that every step that in IEBC has taken has always been wrought with bias. Every move they have always taken, you can read in it that they have always wanted to favor a specific predetermined results. To that end, therefore, I would state, and I would want to come clear, that it is not in the place of NASA, neither is it in the place of Jubilee, independent candidates, or third force to produce free, fair, transparent elections. That is the sole responsibility of IEBC, and that is why I maintain if they bungle these elections this time round, it is them who should be answerable to the people of Kenya, and if ICC comes knocking, they are the ones who should actually answer to those charges first and foremost.
Honorable Maura?
I think listening to my good friend Onyango Law, even the mentioning of the word ICC tells you clearly that NASA, well, I don't know whether it's NASA really. I think ODM would want to see a situation where we go back to the ICC. And that is quite unfortunate, because that is to mean that then we would want to see Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, their cases revived.
No, I'm not sure. Honorable Maura, let me just pause you there. Let me pause you there, please. Because I don't see the relation between what he has said and what you are accusing him of.
Mike, let me show you the relationship. In this whole conversation, you can hear who is trying to advance a case for chaos.
No, all he has said...
Mike, let me explain. And the IEBC, we all agree as Kenyans that it was constituted below the timelines that Johan Kriegler proposed. That 15 months to general elections should have a commission and the rules should be clear. Who precipitated this crisis? We must remind Kenyans who precipitated this crisis. And number two, we must also give the IEBC time also to quickly put the act together, even as new as they are. You have seen ODM going to the IEBC itself and saying that their own chief executive, Ezra Chiloba, should not participate in these elections. I mean, how ridiculous can you make such a statement, Mike? You go ahead and you attack every, the people from key institutions from Western Kenya, Wafula Jipukachi, Chiloba, you name them. It is a tribal wedge against individuals who are individually competent to run offices that they have been bestowed upon. And that is where we have a problem. The erosion of public confidence against the IEBC is not a matter of the technical know-how, as my friend Eugene is trying to advance. It is actually a political process where you tell your side of the divide that indeed let us allow a certain independent institution in the spirit of independence to conduct its own affairs. But when you keep on hammering, when you keep on casting aspersions, when you keep on casting doubts, then you yourself you have a certain outcome, and you must be called out, you must be questioned, because your aim is not necessarily to ensure that Kenyans have confidence in the electoral process.
All right,
Michael.
Yes.
If Isaac doesn't realize that engendering of public participation is a technical matter, then I don't know why he's even representing Jubilee here. Those are some of the technicalities, and that's why we bring interpreters of the law in the name of judiciary to give their interpretation. So for us, really, Isaac, the beef that you have with the ODM and NASA and all that, let's try and focus on the IEBC as an institution. And please, let's focus on the IEBC. Let's focus on the IEBC as an institution and its mandate in delivering a free, credible, and fair election.
Onyango,
the rest is just shenanigans.
You wanted to respond to Maura?
I found Moira's assertions quite outrageous. Number one, Maura seemed to want to perceive or conceive everything through the tribal prisms. My brother, we are dealing with an institution. When we deal with IEBC, we don't see the tribes. You seem to be very keen on those tribal. I can get the politics you are trying to throw into it. We are looking at that institution as an institution, number one. Number two, nobody has talked in the least, nobody has even insinuated that ICC should come to Kenya to revive the old cases. We are saying that a compromised electoral process could as well be a recipe for violence, could as well be a recipe for chaos, and should that produce the kind of results we saw the last time, then this time round, let there be no fishing for who is responsible. We know whom we had entrusted with ensuring that our elections are independent and credible, and they should be held to account for their time in office.
Gentlemen, I want us to move because of time and tackle something different and maybe get your comments. Let me start with you, Professor Michael Wainaina. And yesterday we had both Jubilee Party and NASA heckled in different parts of the country. Is that something that maybe should be raising our alarm and telling us something?
Maura has brought in the elephant in the room, which is tribal politics. I have insisted for a long time, and Michael, you know, that the politics of NASA and Jubilee are predominantly driven by tribalism, impunity, and mediocrity. Siasa ya ukabila, ukora, na upuzi. And when you have siasa ya ukabila, ukora, na upuzi, those are the kind of reactions that you expect from the people. And like I have told you, Michael, we cannot rely on the political class as presently constituted for us to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. So what is emerging now, and I don't think that these are things that are new. These are things that have been simmering over time. I do think that the political class is setting up this country for chaos. I think anybody who doesn't see that is either in denial
in
or
what way are they setting us up for chaos?
As soon as you have politics that is mobilized on the ground on the basis of ethnicity, on hate mongering, on fear mongering, and on war mongering. Remember, Michael, I told you that 2017, from where I'm seated, is not a significant election. There is nothing significant apart from the fact that Kenyans are being given an opportunity to change their leadership. There is nothing significant about the 2017 election. 2013 election was hugely significant because it was going to be the first election after the coming in of the new constitution. The 2002 election was hugely significant because this was the exit of Moi and the coming in of a new administration. 2007 election was not a significant election. It was there was an incumbent and there was an opposition, and people again were being given an opportunity to change their rulers. What is the significance between the similarities between the 2007 elections and the 2017 elections? While these elections by themselves are not significant elections, the political class has huge stakes in these elections. And Michael, the kind of discussion, the kind of conversations you've had around the 2017 elections, it's a do or die, election for the political class. That sets up this country for a very dangerous precedent. And that's why I still go back to the IEBC and I say that they need to raise their profile, they need to raise the confidence of Kenyans. Because, Michael, if the IEBC misses the mark, and chances are that they will miss the mark. Remember, we've talked about Johan Kregler.
I'll need you to summarize because we need to wind up.
Yes, okay. Remember that since Johan Kregler was here, we have changed the Electoral Commission 3 times. Okay? 3 times. The political class has not changed. So what we are seeing, what the kind of stuff that you referred to, for me, I think it is an indicator of things to come.
All right, Eugene, your closing comments as you comment on the chaos, but as you close as well.
The chaos is definitely funded by Jubilee and NASA, and it's very simple. When you choose to have no substance and mobilize people along secondary social profiles like tribes, that is the outcome. That is definitely anticipated, and they know about it. And guess what? That is their fun, because even as they get in there, they definitely have intelligence on the ground, how the reception is going to be. But what do? Because they know, and I like when Prof talks about them as the political class. Even accessing them is a problem. So while those rocks are hurled, they play safe. They are taken out. So I mean that's up to them.
Very briefly.
Sorry, just closing on.
We're really out of time.
Sorry, on IEBC. IEBC should just comply, stop all the shenanigans, and let's have a clear way forward.
First, as NASA, we do condemn the heckling of the president and his deputy in the perceived NASA strongholds, and we tell our supporters that all Kenyans have a right to traverse and canvass for votes anywhere they can, and that was an unfortunate event. NASA has nothing to do with those heckling, and we welcome the president and the deputy to visit any part of this country. Actually, they have a right. We don't even welcome them. All right. Finally, let it be known that NASA will not tire of reminding our institutions, independent or not, that they have to operate within and comply with the law.
Thank you very much. Honorable Maurag, your closing comments, very briefly.
Yeah, I think Kenyans will always be united, and that is why Jubilee has a clarion call of 45 million strong. We will not win elections in the courts. We will win the elections in the ballots, and I would want to ask Kenyans to come out and vote in a free and fair process.
I think that's
and also
tie the knot.
And just a minute, and also to give my heartfelt condolences to all the Christians who love Don Moen, the Christian musician who just passed, and I think we really miss it.
All right, thank you very much, and that's the State of the Nation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Isaac Maura, who's a nominated member of Parliament, Onyango Law, the NASA spokesperson, Professor Michael Wainaina, who's an independent presidential candidate, and Eugene Adabo, who's the deputy chair for Third Way Alliance. That's the State of the Nation, and that's where we wind up State of the Nation this morning. But do stay with us. We have some news updates coming up before we wind up the show, so do stay with us right here on Morning Express.